Hi, folks. This is Mike Gormley. It's the Mike Gormley Show, and today we have Gary Myrick with us, who's a tremendous musician from Texas, um, and he's got a new record out called "The Sum of All My Sins." We just heard a song called "Reach the Rock," which is not from this album. It's from a previous album, which we've been discussing, called "Forever Adventures in 12 String." And you had an interesting co-writer on that song, right?
I did. Well, I was in a band in England for a while called Havana 3 a.m. And that band, I started with uh, a guy that was in The Clash. He was the bass player, Paul Simonon from The Clash. And we uh, were both into motorcycles. And there was another guy that was in a rockabilly band in England called Whirlwind, and his name was Nigel Dixon. And so they had come here from England and went to El Paso, Texas, of all places, and they bought motorcycles, bought Harleys, and rode them to Los Angeles. And I was playing, doing some work with Steve Jones from the Sex Pistols, playing some backup guitar for him on a tour. And so we all met up basically around the liking motorcycles.
Uh-huh.
And then we started talking about music a little bit, and we decided to write songs. And so we got together, we wrote a few songs, and then we got together. I had a really great drummer, Steve Klong, to bring in, and it sounded really good. We liked it. We decided to start a band, and we started Havana 3 a.m. at that time. And then we ended up moving to England with that band. But we recorded Reach the Rock like an electric version, and I wanted to do a total acoustic 12-string version on my record before this, which was Forever Adventures in 12-string, that came out during the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
So I did that, and I was real pleased with it. So that's what you're going to hear. You're going to hear from that Forever.
We just heard "Reach the Rock"
Oh,
came
you
out.
heard it already. I'm sorry.
Okay. But that's cool. You know what? We also didn't mention, going way back to the beginning of the broadcast, we came in on a tune called "Gloria" from the "Sum of All My Sins" album.
Yeah,
It's
Gloria.
it's best known as a Van Morrison song, and the band Them.
Yeah.
But and that's an interesting choice, and we can go back to that in a minute. I want to ask you, doing this album, this new record, you worked with a producer named Robert Margouleff.
Yes.
Uh, tell us how you got together, and tell us a little bit more about him, because it's fascinating what his past is, and which is varied, and your past as well. We came together on this record, so maybe.
Well, we were put together through Epic Records. I was signed to Epic Records in the 80s, and I had a third album to do, and which was called Language. And they put me together with Robert Margouleff, and we got along real well. And I knew his history because he had, as we mentioned, he'd done really the best of Stevie Wonder's work in the 70s. He did all Talking Book, that album, which is incredible. And
Intervisions?
see,
You do Intervisions?
Intervisions. He, Superstition, really, which was Stevie Wonder's biggest #1 song ever, and which is a great song. And so they put me together with Robert, and we got along really well. He's very artistic minded. He really understands being an artist means, and what you're you're not trying to just sell a product. You're trying to do something that you feel and believe in. And he always understood that, and was real helpful in producing this new record, because I was going to play all the instruments except for drums. And he had mentioned that Stevie Wonder had done that on his one of his early records, and that it turned out really great. And he just was kind of telling me that I should definitely do it. And now that it's done, the ease of doing this record, because of that, me playing all those instruments, made it really become a special recording in my years of making records.
Yeah. So, and his background, not to make it the Robert Margouleff hour, but
No, that's fine.
His background includes not just Stevie Wonder, but Devo.
Oh yeah,
Just
yeah. He did Whip It. Whip It was Devo's biggest hit,
right?
And he did the album Freedom of Choice, which is really a great album. And in fact, they have recently come back to him, and he has written some liner notes of their greatest hits album that I think just came out on Warner Brothers. And Bob is just a different kind of producer. He's just first of all, he's a good guy. He's very technically smart, really knows technical things that most recording artists need that knowledge.
Yeah.
And you put that together with his experience, and it's a good thing. It's a great thing.
Well, it is a great thing. It's a really cool recording, but it's really down and dirty. Is that you think that's an accurate description? It's really got guts.
I will totally accept down and dirty, because it's got some rawness. It's pretty tough. It's dangerous. That's kind of was my goal. A lot of guitar, some feedback, electric guitar. It's a wild thing.
Now that it's out there, it's basically as we speak this week, it's just out there. It's already hitting some airwaves around the country.
It's only really been out to radio for 3 days, and we've gotten 2 really great stations. One in a really large station in Tulsa, Oklahoma, yesterday, and then today, Connecticut, Hartford, Connecticut, and it's starting to, the adventure has started. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, right. Now you're around long enough to have seen the industry and even audiences in one style kind of change over to now it's just a different situation than it has been for a while.
Yeah.
Given that thought, what are your expectations? What do you think could or will happen with this record?
Well, to me, it's all about radio. And because radio, if radio plays me, and a lot of these places that a lot of my older stuff is being played all around the planet in different areas, like England, and I'm even being played in Peru, Germany.
Germany is a big market. Somebody was telling me yesterday that Germany
is
a market for you.
Yes, it is, and has been ever since the 80s.
Cool.
So, all these things matter to me, and I can go out and play, put together a band and go out and play exactly my electric stuff, but I can also play my, some of my 12-string acoustic stuff.
Yeah.
All by myself, so I like being able to do a few different things. So I'm not locked into just one thing.
Well, this album is all you except for drums. So does that mean that's the way you're going to play it live when the time comes? Just the two of you or yourself? Or
no, I it has crossed my mind, but to do it really right for the album, I would get a second guitarist to play rhythm guitar behind me, and a bass player to add to the drums and me.
Hey, now, so we're talking about radio, and you're not a stranger at radio. Not only Havana 3 a.m., but your band had a great song that is still being played all over the country, called "She Talks in Stereo."
Yeah,
Just to me is like one of the titles of all time. It's such a it's
that's
just
so
great,
nice.
great
It's
imagery.
nice of you to say.
Just great imagery. And that was what was the band you had at that time? Gary
That was
Myrick
Gary Myrick and the Figures.
Figures. And that's that song though, it's not what we're talking about here. That's you've evolved, not that that song was a negative, but you've evolved into this other style we've been discussing today that she talks in stereo. Is what would you say, maybe more a pop song?
I think it was, well, Gary Myrick and the Figures was kind of a punk pop thing.
Hmm.
Back, of course, this was the early 80s. That record came out in 1980. And so, you know, I like to you know, keep it interesting for myself. So, you know, I've returned to some of my Texas roots with that acoustic 12-string album. And so there's a certain, you know, there's a blues connection to
Mhm.
all of this. And earlier on, I mean, that was, you know, I mean, that's what, 40 years ago, you
Gosh,
know?
yeah, I know.
So if I don't change in 40 years, I better hang it up.
Yeah,
You
right.
know,
Yeah.
I got to keep it interesting, and I always want to have fun and do things. And hopefully I've gotten better through time. You know, you learn things, you need to learn more about your own instrument.
Sure.
You know, I've been playing guitar for a long time. And I also play slide, like I mentioned, lap steel and things like that. So I've been playing guitar for a very long time. So I got to make sure that I'm doing things that really float my boat.
Got it. Why don't we listen to a little bit of Gary Myrick and the Figures? But it's we'll hear she talks in stereo later. But this is a song called "Ever Since the World Began."
Yeah, I like this a lot.
You like that song, and it's got that flavor to it. So let's take a
Yeah.
look for that as we ride into a commercial, and we'll be back in a couple of minutes. This is the Mike Gormley Show, and Gary Myrick is entertaining us today with this conversation.
Thank you, Mike.